Thank you, and good afternoon. Happy to be here. My name is Izhar Shay. I'm a general partner with Canaan Partners. We are a global venture capital firm with offices in Silicon Valley, New York City, India, and in Israel. We invest globally in exciting companies and unbelievable entrepreneurs. Our topic for today is security, global security, threats, challenges, and opportunities. And I think this is one of those typical areas where Izhar has been quite active and has produced a very significant number of successful enterprises, companies, and world leaders. Today we are here with Bill, VP and VP of Global Technology at GE. Thank you, Bill. And Manky, Global Security Strategist for Fortinet. Both of these gentlemen are security experts in their domains, and will help us figure out the challenges and opportunities. I'd like to kick this off with you there. I spoke earlier about what's new today and what are the new challenges. We are going to talk about big data, but just in general, what are the challenges that enterprises are facing today in the new area of security and threats?
Okay, yeah, really good question. So the way that I look at it is really about, and this really ties into big data, data and analytics. Is how do you find the needle in the haystack, right? Pipes are expanding, you got gigabytes of throughput going through all this information, and really when it comes to cyber attack, it's just that one needle in the haystack. It's really volatile, it can spike up at any point in time. So it's really about trying to deeply inspect a lot of this traffic and find that. And I'll get into, obviously some tips and techniques and different innovations in that space. But the reason this is possible is because cyber criminals have a full-blown infrastructure. One of the big problems we see today is volume. There's tons of volume coming up from all different attack vectors or angles that we see. And these attack vectors are things like, anything from a search engine poisoning attack. It could be a new PDF document in an email file. It could be coming in from an insider threat. These are all possible because of things like affiliate programs. There's a really big economy behind this. Any legitimate business practice. Cyber criminals are practicing everything from quality assurance to paying middlemen, affiliates to actually go and do their attack. So that's driving a lot of the volume of the problem that we see. It's a really big challenge to enterprise.
So from a qualitative perspective, are we facing today a more dangerous cyber world because of the fact that we're all connected, everything is social, everything is immediately apparent on so many electronic outlets? Are we really under a more significant threat than we were, say, 10 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's comforting.
Yeah. I think there's a big relation between integration, communication, and security. Anytime you have a communication channel and you integrate further, there's going to be a need for security because that opens up the door to cyber attack. It opens up the door to anybody sitting in his or her basement, whether it's that or whether it's a state-sponsored attack. That channel is there. You no longer have to have that physical access. A great example of this is within an industrial control system. It used to be traditional air-gap networks. Now, because of integration and convenience, management, remote management, outsourcing, and so forth, you have those channels there, which poses a big problem.
So, Bill, I'd like to turn this to you. Jeff Immelt, the chairman and CEO, spoke here this morning about big data, about the fact that GE has become a big data company and analytics amongst many other big things that you are doing. And he also alluded to the challenges that big data poses and connected this also to security. So I'd like to ask you, looking at the global operations of GE, both in terms of being a very large enterprise, but also in terms of selling in so many countries, what are the top priorities that you have to address in your job when you deal with security?
So, I think that the way we have to look at this is that the last decade, the last 10 years, has really been focused on what I would call the consumer internet. And that is a totally different challenge than actually we face going forward, which we can call the industrial internet. And I think Derek talked about control systems being connected, but it goes way beyond control systems, is that foundationally, if we look at the music industry or we look at retail, they've all been remade through the internet. And I think we're about to see where energy gets remade. We're about to see, certainly, hopefully, where healthcare gets remade, transportation. You saw ways. It starts to remake all of these foundational industries. Now, there are two things that are the center point there, and that's the topic here. First of all, without data, you can't transform these industries. You can transform some of the other consumer industries because those are transactional. But the industrial base is going to be transformed through the collection of data, through greater automation, through productivity gains, and so on. And the interconnection of those things brings huge value to these industries. But with that, foundationally, we're going to see that the cybersecurity threat is entirely different in the industrial internet than the consumer internet. And we're going to have to really rethink entirely the product lines that are developed, because the fact is that when you start to look at what can happen, it's the endpoint costs are down to safety, life, to how a country operates. Whereas I think in the consumer internet, while there's big threats and challenges, you start to look at what the outcomes are. There are things you can deal with on the back end. So when we look at the next 10 years, cybersecurity is one of probably two things that will slow down our ability to foundationally take advantage of this industrial internet.
Does GE have any active operations in the area of cybersecurity, anything between research and development to actually delivering products to market?
Yeah. So we certainly are making investments because, and I think you heard Jeff early on, we suddenly realized that it's not just about making a machine, it's about making a machine intelligent. So the sensors, the control systems, they're all foundationally changing. When you look at the investments that we're starting to make, and certainly analytics is one side. The other side is on security, because you asked about that. You know, we're finding that we're making investments in terms of the processes and procedures to how you build software that is secure, which is in many ways the antithesis of the idea of agile, fast development. So you've got to figure out how to do that well. The second thing is we're bringing in and making investments in operations to even improve our positioning in how we manage threats coming in, and we're making those investments now. The third investment is in a group, I think, that is there to take our own products and try to break into them, right? And so we make all these investments, and so I personally, we're beginning to make investments in Israel in security because it's a great place to be. But also in analytics, we see there's huge potential for us there, and I'm very interested in some of the companies I've already seen today.
You know, while you were talking, I was thinking, again, Jeff was here this morning and alluded to the fact that about 60% of the engines in the world are manufactured by GE. And I was thinking, when you were talking about attacks like Stuxnet and others that went after machines and changed the way they work, I'm just wondering if there is any concern at all, is there any active processes that you're engaged with in order to avoid those very clever cyber crimes, cyber attacks, protect your systems that actually run a significant part of the world?
Yeah. So that was my point. We are making investments in our own operations. So we created a cybersecurity center outside of Richmond, Virginia. We announced about 200 people there. I'm making an investment in Israel more on the product side. How we try to bring talent in on how we develop products, and then how we attack our own products to see, can we discover the weaknesses first? And then certainly we look to companies like Eric's and others, because we're going to need the product lines to really mature on the industrial side. I think that there has been a lot of focus on the consumer. I think with StockNext and the rest, the industrial side, we're still at a baby step even for where we are. And we will not get to the industrial internet unless we solve this problem.
For the time being, we can rest assured that the engines will cycle in the right direction as opposed to stop.
We are certainly going to make sure that proprietary closed networks exist, but as long as you're in that vein, you can never transform these industries and see the gains, see the GDP growth, that is going to occur if we can get to this industrial internet.
Right, so Derek, back to you. Fortinet has been around for quite some time. We are facing today new types of cyber attacks. We spoke briefly about APT earlier on. Can you just address APT for those of us who are not there yet and let us know what is that your company is doing on that?
Sure, absolutely. So, you started on some good points there. I mean, when it comes to APT, that really is...
Explain APT.
So, advanced persistent threat. The advanced part being advanced methodology. In reality, we've seen these, at least for a decade around. It's just that the existing tools are becoming a little sharper. They're more persistent, meaning that because they're sharper, they can evade detection technologies. They can stay resident on systems. In some of our cases, that we've researched and seen out there on the internet, there's been some threats that stay resident on machines for 1 year to 2 years without even being noticed. So that's a big problem. That's the persistency there, and obviously you have the threat. Now, you're talking about the industrial internet. I mean, when it comes to consumers, we see two different types of attacks. Generally, we see the sort of broad blanketed attacks. These are things like mass spam emails, trying to fill the cash cow, right? But when it comes to a lot of the serious nature of threats, Stuxnet being a perfect example of that, that is really what comes down to APT. They're developing and harnessing weapons. You start on a really good point about trying to find weaknesses before cyber criminals would. That's a big investment of what we're doing at Fortinet as well. We have our own Black Ops team, as an example, that actually combs through code, tries to find these weapons or these attack holes that cyber criminals will use in advance. The idea being is if we can find these, we can close the gap, make the world a safer place, and it's a big ongoing effort. We found over 150 of really critical software flaws as an example of what we do. So when it comes to APT, there's another investment we're doing also related to analytics and big data internally. Of course, us as a security firm, we need to protect the world and make it a safer place. But it's moved beyond just a firewall. Any security vendor, of course, back in the .com era and days, for manufacturing firewalls, let's just close off traffic and allow traffic. That's not sufficient nowadays. You really need to be able to inspect what's going through. You have all traffic flowing through HTTP, flowing through the World Wide Web, and that's what I meant earlier in the conversation about trying to find that needle in the haystack. So we're investing a lot into analytics. I sat down there and watched that wonderful video with Waze and the map, and I saw a lot of connections to the type of work we're doing, right? Say in LA, you see all the bad actors, the traffic jams, the slow drivers, and so forth. We do similar work, right? We have to map. We literally have a map. We have a huge intelligence database that grows. We have to keep historical data, map out all these bad actors, see where they're coming from, so we can correlate and event correlate all that information, and then harness that intelligence. What do you do with that intelligence? That's the innovation part, right? So we spend a lot of R&D and investment into that intelligence, and then innovating, leveraging that intelligence to stop these APTs. Because the idea is about trying to have a layered defense approach. Because within an advanced persistent threat like Stuxnet, it could come from various sources, various means, and there's various fingerprints you can look at. And that is the true game of security where we're moving forward, I believe.
Are there certain attacks or certain threats out there that you frankly do not know today how to deal with?
I wouldn't say, we're aware of everything that's happening out there in cybersecurity. Is there a silver bullet? No, I don't think so. We do our best job. So again, our approach is UTM, it's layered, defense in depth. It's like body armor, try to build it up and block all those attacks at every level. But I firmly believe that everybody needs to be prepared. You hear about these breaches day to day, in publications. The reality is, my approach to security when I look at the security framework is having a defense, a robust, adequate defense solution in place, have everybody educated. I mean, a lot of the attacks that we see, especially with APT, is social engineering. It's going after the weakness of the human mind, right? Trying to attack people that are not educated and breach out their defense. But lastly, if a breach were to occur, try to remain visible, try to understand that this breach has occurred, and then what do you do? So that's the whole incident response aspect of it, and that's something that we're really involved with right now.
So we are at the Izhar Dealmakers conference. I'd like to take this to the Izhar angle. You mentioned that you have investment in Israel. What kind of opportunities would you consider to be relevant cyberspace security opportunities for GE? And what kind of cooperation should Israeli entrepreneurs and investors seek when talking to GE?
So, I think the two broad areas that we care about. I think there's a great opportunity on the analytics side. Look, security is just one aspect of trying to discover patterns of behavior and improve operations. And sometimes it's people who are doing the wrong thing. Sometimes you also want to look for patterns where people are doing the right things, but the outcome's not going to be good, right? They're misaligning something. They're not maintaining it right. Have the right settings and so on. So the ability to use analytics across the board to look at behaviors and begin to ensure that you are optimizing the use of your systems. And we wrote a paper. You can look at if we can begin to optimize energy, transportation, healthcare, and so on, and you begin to look, it's about $1 trillion of opportunity that exists per year for those businesses globally. The second, so I would say anything to do with analytics that gives us deep insight, that looks for patterns of behavior, that begins to change how you can operate machines and operate processes more efficiently, and give guidance and insight to people who own those, can be game-changing in any one of these industries. And you heard Jeff say, just a 1% change in behavior of how you operate a jet aircraft engine is $3 billion a year. There's obviously, we know that if you begin to make major change, you can see 3, 4, 5% a year. And that's true in all of these industries. I think the second thing is we're looking for new and innovative approaches to cybersecurity that can be applied to machine-to-machine communication, that can be applied to, we look at a machine and say, can a machine have presence? Can it know and identify people? Because I would say the one threat you got to realize is that the biggest threat is actually not from the outside, it's from the inside. And if you're going to look at the ones that really matter, it's people who work for you. And so you have to begin to also look inside and have machines say, is this person allowed to touch me? Is this person allowed to adjust me? Is this person even allowed in this room? Because I will tell you right now, if you can fix that problem, you get rid of a lot of your security threats up front. So we look to these new and innovative ways to make machines more intelligent, to use data more effectively to optimize operations, and to use data more effectively to look for patterns of behavior, whether it's a nefarious threat or it's someone just didn't do something right, to make that a better operation for the customer. All of those kind of investments.
Do you consider yourself also as a likely buyer of Israeli technologies or companies?
Well, absolutely. We are casting the net wide. I'm making a trip out in April on this very topic. And the reason why is I think if I look at cybersecurity, this is an area where you got to go where talent is. You got to go where the investment is. When I just look at the amount of investment and talent in cybersecurity, I get excited. And just this morning, if I look at the amount of talent investment going into analytics, I'm excited. So absolutely, I think investment, and I think where it helps us today. Acquisition, partnerships, we're up for all of that.
Great, so Derek, that view, I think that you have formidable Israeli competitors. I don't know if partnerships, do you see any potential for partnerships with Israeli security cyberspace companies?
Absolutely. We're very much in the same boat as was said. It's definitely hard to find talent out there. We've actually bootstrapped ourselves for all of this. So we've developed a sharing platform, a sharing network. We're all about sharing that information. As I said, that whole mapping intelligence database, we have a lot of our own, research groups that gather this information. When it comes to startups and innovative ways to collect this information, we're all game for that. It's a really big initiative of mine, from anything from startups to national computer emergency response teams. We're doing a lot of work one-on-one with those channels. So I think it's tremendously welcome. It's a big initiative. As I said, you have to do it in order to understand and have visibility into that entire threat spectrum. And there is so much, in my experience, there is a definite lack of talent when it comes to the talent pool in Israel. Obviously, there's no one for innovation, so it makes perfect sense. Just one other thing I wanted to comment on, as part of that sort of innovation and initiative, I was talking about APTs, and you're talking about trying to worry about the insider threats or what's happening on the network. I fully agree with that. That's a big focus of what we're doing, in particular with outbound or egress traffic, seeing what's leaving the network too. Because in our experience, almost anything with that communication channel, they need to steal intellectual property, they need to issue commands. So there's always that communication channel. So we're doing a lot of work with application control, with botnets in particular, understanding that communication protocol and identifying the traffic that's focusing on the traffic that's leaving the network. I think it's a great strategy.
Great, I think those were two very good closing statements. The threats are still there, the challenges are still apparent, but the potential to work, cooperate with global leaders in their fields is still there for all of us Israeli entrepreneurs and investors. I'd like to thank you, Izhar from GE, and Manky from Fortinet. Thank you very much.
Thank you.